We're going to take a sneak peek into the Media Alliance jury today because joining me is Susan Kingston-Brown, the Global Brand President, who was on the Media Alliance jury. Thank you so much for joining us, Susan.
You're very welcome. It's a delight to be here with you in sunny France, sitting opposite the blue sea. It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, it's a nice venue. It's nice, the quiet before the storm, which is quite good.
Tell us a little bit about the awarding jury and what was the most different pattern that you really saw this year?
So, we just finished about 2 a.m. this morning, so that's why I'm keeping the sunglasses on. It was the most incredible experience. I think that my headline that I've come away, and obviously it's fresh, coming away from it, I'm so inspired and so excited that great work is continuing to be done. We saw some amazing work. I'm so excited for people to see in the next couple of days who's won and who's got medals. But I would definitely encourage everyone to look at the wide breadth of work. It's not just about the winners. There was some nuggets of magic all the way through. It was interesting. I think there was a few key themes that came out. The first is, and I'm going to get the numbers behind this, but there was definitely much more breadth of people who were entering and the type of clients who were entering. And the kind of that fragmentation meant of different types of work. You didn't have 3 or 4 people who won everything.
Oh, okay.
You have quite a lot of, a really, really broad spectrum of work that came up very high in the medals.
Independent agencies also come in?
Yeah, a few independent agents. We don't actually see who enters the work because Cannes run it brilliantly, so they don't want to bias us of who entered the work. So you just purely look at the case and the entry, but you don't see who's actually entered it, and that's very, very useful actually, because then you don't think in the context of the type of agency, independent, holding
the
group,
kind of strength they have,
or the strength they have. Yeah, because that might, and I think that's smart because that might bias the work. So it'll be interesting also for me to see what the difference is as well. But the key thing of that was just the fact that you saw so many different types of work reflected. The big theme that we were seeing was you could see that media has such more of an expansive definition than ever before. So I think quite a few years ago, some of the entries wouldn't have been entered in Media Alliance, but they now define it as media, as a touch point to communicate. It's paid, it's owned, it's earned. Some were very light on paid, some were only paid, but it was really like expansive what we define as media. So that was interesting, and that created great debate in the room actually of, is it really a media line? And I think we concluded that that's continuing to evolve, so that was great. The third theme was really around, there was a lot of work that we kind of used the term hacking. Hacking algorithms, hacking consumers, like services that exist today. And actually, you've got at one end of the spectrum, you've got people who are just being really smart to hack sponsorships, for example. If you're not a sponsor of a certain event, how do you create a presence at the event? But then it went right to actually reinventing or reimagining. So if brands were not part of a certain event, they were creating something. So it was much more than just hacking it and trying to get into something that existed. They created their own presence that really kind of capitalized on that as well. So we saw a lot of that. And obviously in the AI space within that, there was a lot of how to hack or how to train algorithms as part of campaign ideas. And that was very inspiring to see. Some, a bit more sophisticated than others, but very inspiring to see.
I'd like to actually come to something that is your baby. Glowstar had launched something called Full Color Media, which kind of helps brands from becoming bland. Tell us a little about it.
So very, very linked to the themes that we're seeing here in Cannes as well. I think that it's such an exciting time for our industry with the rise of technology and the rise of automation through AI. But what it means is that what's brilliant about it is that everyone really has access to the same type of technology and algorithms. Different agencies have slightly different tools, but ultimately the open source nature of Google, of Facebook in terms of how you buy media means we all have access to the same way of using the algorithms or optimizing the media. So the meaning and the true meaning behind this is that we need to make sure that we're in control of the algorithms, we're training it, and we're designing the nuance, identifying firstly, where is the brand going to play a difference and be different to the category? And then from that, designing ideas, designing our strategies, how we implement it, that really stand out. So it's rather than being the same as everyone else in the category, we actually design something that's going to be quite different and make that client grow in that category as well. So that's the first thing. And the meaning behind kind of full colour is that we have designed a new growth model, which is called Brand Patterns. We worked with Oxford University. It's a extensive, really sophisticated piece of work where we analysed 10,000 brands. And what we identified is that there's no one silver bullet. There's every single brand has a different pattern. And what we then did with that is we have that built as a tool within our planning to allow people to identify the kind of common sets of patterns that to help define the job to be done. So that's really where full colour media comes. Identifying the patterns, where does the nuance lie that I as a brand can differentiate myself, and then how do I design creativity that really cuts through.
And I think from what I understand, that's before the AI comes in. How do you basically make sure that AI is also integrated in every function across IPG at this point?
Yeah, it is. That's really around strategy and planning. But in terms of AI, I suppose there's two different types of uses. There's the kind of the efficiency. So how do we make sure that all of our people are using their brains and thinking and creating ideas? And that's the functional implementation of AI in our everyday. So how do we make sure we're crunching data, we're processing data, we're putting things at our fingertips to stimulate ideas, but then creating the headspace. There's a role for humans that continues to exist, is not going to be replaced by AI, and then it's what you do with it. And that for us is very important. So we've got a huge continued investment around technology and data. We've rolled out Interact that is on every desktop of IPG all over the world. And that means that everyone has access to the tools so that they can spend their time thinking. They can spend their time generating ideas and interrogating clients' briefs, which is very important.
And another important thing that's happening, everybody's talking about it, is the IPG Omnicom merger, of course. Now, how is that going to really help UM's adoption of technology or accelerate it, basically?
Two things. I will start with it's not complete, of course. It's still going through all the regulatory bodies, so we are still separate organisations. There's a very, very small group of people, of which I'm not included, and many of us are not, who are going through that process. So we're continuing to invest and develop our product. Without the merger, because there is a small possibility it doesn't go through. Hopefully it does. We're incredibly excited, I think, within our business and many of our clients about the potential of what the two businesses can do together. So it's less about just bringing two businesses together to create one, and it's more about design.
And another important thing that's happening, everybody's talking about it, is the IPG Omnicom merger, of course. Now, how is that going to really help UM's adoption of technology or accelerate it, basically? Two things. I will start with it's not complete, of course. It's still going through all the regulatory bodies, so we are still separate organisations. There's a very, very small group of people, of which I'm not included, and many of us are not, who are going through that process. So we're continuing to invest and develop our product. Without the merger, because there is a small possibility it doesn't go through. Hopefully it does. We're incredibly excited, I think, within our business and many of our clients about the potential of what the two businesses can do together. So it's less about just bringing two businesses together to create one, and it's more about designing a new organisation. I think the continued investment in technologies will be they're very complementary. With Flywheel and Axiom have very, very different data sets and different purposes. I mean, the possibilities with those coming, being able to be fused together, and what we can do with the brilliant minds within those organisations is just, it's so exciting. And I think the democratization of, I use a very, very professional phrase, a new set of toys. And I just think a new set of toys. Voice. Okay.
So I think, and I say this to my clients and, during pitches at the moment when people are saying, well, what does our relationship look like in a year? The first thing is I reassure everyone, and the commitment to brands within this new organisation is there. John Wren and Philippe have said it repeatedly, that the agency brands as a culture is very important to our clients and important to our people and important to our product. So that won't go away. But what will happen, if everything goes to plan, is that immediately, day one, I'll have a new set of toys to tap into. And all of our client leads within and across the business will look across our organisation and say, okay, what additional things can I use to make it stronger? And then over time, obviously, as we design what the new agency of the future looks like, we'll create something. I've no doubt we'll create something very, very powerful.
But while the brands are individually very important, there's also that big question of client conflict. How are you going to make sure that every brand feels important, that relationship is really maintained, and there's that wall in between different competing brands there?
It's a great question, and I don't think it's a new issue. I think it exists today in every single holding group, in Omnicom, in IPG today, in WPP, in Publicis, every single holding group. And, we will continue. That's another reason why maintaining the agency brands as they exist with the firewalls in place, with that absolute confidentiality and really strict guidelines and protocols in place, that will continue. And, of course, two organisations coming together, there might be more conflicts, but that won't be the same very strict protocols. And we've got internal audits that really make sure that that's all in place as well. So I don't think it creates any new situation at all.
Heads will also roll.
No, I don't.
That's always a big question, right? I mean, how many people are going to lose their jobs? How many efficiency? Just kind of improve the efficiency. What is going to be the cost?
I think the two businesses have to continue to operate the businesses we're operating today. So, and the brands are designed to focus on clients and to focus with clients and to focus on, the work we need to do. That still needs the level of resources we have in the business. Of course, there's going to be, and in both organisations in our earnings calls, we talked about where the 750 million target of the first, I don't know what the period is, but the efficiency, but that's only 3% of operating costs. So if you look at real estate, if you look at combining our contracts with all the different technology providers, there's a lot of ways to create the efficiencies of the new organisation before you even look at resources as well. So, that, of course, is a question on everyone's lips, externally and a little bit internally. But I think just going back to the facts is very important, rather than everyone kind of speculating or feeling, unnecessarily nervous about that.
Just one last question. What do you think will the agency of the future look like with AI coming in?
Well, I think AI is here. We've been using it in our business for the last years, honestly, and it just is every single day it evolves. When you put it in people's hands, really smart people, and they're continually thinking how to improve it, that's what's happening in our business every day. I think the agency of the future is a collective of deeply intelligent thinkers who are, continue to think outside our field. We're like consultants, and we really are an extension of our clients' teams. I think there's an engine that helps us do that, which is the Interact, which is the technology platform that connects us all and connects our process, and the continued use of data to kind of fuel a lot of those insights and creativity. But I think the agency of the future continues to be, an extension of the client's marketing teams. Hopefully has a greater role up in the broader businesses around how we look for new sources of growth for our organisations. We work with a couple of clients at the moment who are, one, I'll give two examples. One's publicly listed, another is owned by private equity. And for them, the overall value of the organisation, of the share price in one, and secondly of the potential share price for the one that's private equity owned, is very important. So what we do is deep econometrics to ensure that our investment is aligned with their objective, which is growing the organisation, kind of growth and value of the organisation. So we just continue to do that, and the future agency model, I think, is people at the heart, powered by technology.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Yeah, love to meet you.